To enjoy or endure, a heatwave hits Western Europe. Parts of Spain reach 43 degrees Celsius.
Now, we've been hearing, haven't we, about the heat wave here in the UK, and we'll get a forecast from Matt in just a moment. But temperatures are also soaring in parts of Europe.
Yeah, if you think it's been hot here, France and Spain are experiencing sweltering conditions, and Portugal has seen some dangerous wildfires. Here's Tim Allman.
In Madrid, the sun shines down without mercy. The whole city bakes. Just being outdoors can be a traumatic experience. It's deadly, said this woman. We're all melting. I'm carrying Bobby because it's too hot. It's unbearable. It's a similar story further south in Seville. Umbrellas, even though there isn't a drop of rain. So intense is the heat. The truth is, it's been hell, said this man. Just walking around, it's unbelievable. High temperatures and a lack of rain can be a dangerous combination. In Portugal, wildfires have burned for several days. The situation's so bad, the authorities have asked for emergency help from the European Union. No reports of any deaths, but dozens have been injured and property has been destroyed.
It was very sudden, a lot of smoke. All of a sudden the house was alight. We couldn't do anything.
In Paris, temperatures have reached the mid-30s, with no sign of any cooling down expected in the week ahead. Europe will have to enjoy or endure the heat for now. Tim Allman, BBC News.
Dr. Daniel Kamen is an expert on climate change. He's a professor at the University of California, Berkeley. He had this explanation as to what was happening across Europe.
What we are seeing are really two effects going on together. One is that we've warmed the planet by about 1.1 degrees Celsius, which might not sound like a lot, but it means that forests are drier, that we have less moisture in the lower atmosphere, we have less moisture in ecosystems. And unfortunately, Europe, Western Europe in particular, is a so-called warming hotspot. And that's due to, first, the geography of Europe, ice over the Arctic region, and a so-called double jet stream, which means essentially that the hot air is trapped. And those double jet stream events have become more common. And that explains really a large fraction of the additional heat waves we're seeing now. So it's a double whammy, and it's one that the climate science really points very directly to.
Often the problem for people to understand, isn't it? It's I look back to the 90s when the French, I think they still have anxieties about the next canicule, as they call it, the heat wave, where they lost thousands of people back in the 90s. But, you know, there are times when it's just another bad couple of months.
Well, this is probably more than that. I don't want to sound alarmist because this is a trend that's been accelerating since the early 2000s. But the hotter it gets, not only does it stress us as people, it stresses crops, it stresses the power system, it stresses our need for power and for air conditioning. And so it is a climate feedback effect, but it's really one that we unfortunately see very clearly in the the modeling work that's been done by laboratories in Germany, in New York City, and in the Netherlands.
You mentioned also that this double jet stream, and that's having an impact on the Arctic. And what is the effect then of those warming temperatures, particularly in the Arctic? Because it's not just about sunburn for us, is it?
No, not at all. In fact, last year we saw these record heat waves getting to 40+ degrees in the Siberian Arctic. And that's predicted as well because one of these two double jet jet stream bands is right along the northern coast of Russia. Then there's another one that kind of passes through the middle of the continent. And so what you're seeing is the warming is really concentrated over the land, largely because as it gets out over the water, it starts to melt the ice and it warms the water. But it really gets pushed back down onto continental Europe. And in particular, Western Europe is really the focal point of this.
And if it's managing to melt and soften the permafrost, that presumably is when we run into more emissions problems of what's coming out of the permafrost.
Well, that's the real worry. That's why we call this a feedback event. The warming itself is bad, and the more we warm the Arctic and the Siberian permafrost, the more we release methane. one of the most potent greenhouse gases that then contributes more. And every time you hear about another collapse of a permafrost belt, another discovery of a mammoth in the ice because the permafrost is melting, these are effects of this excessive heating over Siberia, where we have a huge amount of methane that could be released and is being released today.